What if you could talk to the version of yourself from the future, 2 minutes into the future to be exact? What would you do? On a regular day, cafe owner, Kato, closes up shop with the help of his waitress, Aya. Once everything is settled, he heads up to his apartment upstairs to practice for his upcoming gig with his band. As he enters the room and starts fiddling with his acoustic guitar, in the background, his monitor starts to flicker. With his guitar pick nowhere to be found, he gets help from someone, a very unexpected someone. On his monitor is a man, but not just any man. It's himself 2 minutes into the future, and he was talking to him. The man on the TV introduces himself and says that the pick he was looking for was underneath the rug. After telling him that he was from the future, he tells Kato of the present that was something he learned from the future as well. To further prove that he was real and not a recording, he starts a word chain. Once Kato from the present loses, the Kato from the future tells him to head down to the shop and speak to himself on the TV. The Kato from the present hurries downstairs and does as he is instructed. Sure enough, on the TV at the cafe, he could see himself from 2 minutes ago, looking for his guitar pick. He starts a conversation and tells himself exactly what his other self told him 2 minutes ago. Are you keeping up? I hope so, because this gets way more confusing as we go along. I overhears him talking to the TV and asks him what was up. He tries to puzzle the entire situation by writing it down on the cafe chalkboard, much to Aya's annoyance. After writing it all down on the chalkboard, however, Kato concludes that, yep, he was definitely dreaming. Aya tries telling him he wasn't, but he just goes upstairs again, convinced he was in a dream. This illusion is immediately shattered, however, when himself from the future tells him that everything was real. And that wasn't the only thing. Trouble was coming, in the form of Kamiya. Right on cue, Kamiya himself walks into the shop and asks about his little music gig. He tells him that he is coming, and he is bringing his 2 friends, Tanabe and Ozawa, with the obvious intent of just disrupting his acoustic concert. As they speak, Kamiya notices the TV and the Kato of the present looking right at them. He starts thinking that it's a video and asks if he has a YouTube channel. Aya overhears this and comes over. The two stare at the screen, fascinated by the thought that he has a channel. This fascination turns into shock when Kato of the present responds to them. At first they think it's a live stream, but after some explanation and examples, Kato convinces them that what they were seeing from the TV downstairs was the past talking to them, who were 2 minutes in the future. Kamiya then asks Kato what tech he was using to do everything. Kato tells him the truth, that he has absolutely no idea what is going on. Theorizing that the TV itself could transcend time, Aya then brands it the Time TV. Now excited with their new discovery, Kamiya asks Aya for Kato's apartment number, and the two excitedly rush to the place, with Kato trailing meekly behind. Kamiya even calls Tanabe and Ozawa over, much to Kato's annoyance. In Kato's room, the three sit in front of his monitor and see all 3 of them on the other side of the screen, together with Tanabe and Ozawa. To prove that the screen was stuck in a 2-minute time delay, Aya asks her past self to send Ozawa a sticker, and Kamiya shows them a magic trick by having them name anything, and he will have it in his back pocket. Seeing that Aya did send a sticker 2 minutes ago, and that Kamiya did have a ketchup bottle in his back pocket, Ozawa and Tanabe are convinced of the Time TV's powers, and they all decide to play around with it more. All 5 of them head upstairs to where the monitor was located and decide to ask their future selves some question. Tanabe asks which way he should scratch his scratch card, and his future self helps him win a sleeping bag. All 3 of them are over the moon about this discovery, but at the back, Kato is not so happy. The rest of them try to get him to play along, telling him that this device could help him determine if he could get their neighbor, the barber's daughter, to come to his show with his band. At first, he really doesn't want to, but in just a few moments, his future self jumps in and tells him that she accepted the invite. Convinced by the power of their discovery, all of them head on back downstairs and try to do as they are told by their future selves. Tanabe tells his past self how to win a scratch card, and on the other hand, Aya tells Kato to invite their neighbor to his gig, before running back up to ask a new question to her future self. Kato nervously brings the flyer over to the neighboring barber shop and asks the girl out, but instead of an okay like he expected, he's shot down. She tells him that she's not really into music, and Kato leaves the barber shop feeling dejected. He immediately runs into Aya, however, who tells him that he should still tell his past self that things would be okay, so it wouldn't break the loop. He does as he's told, and then we are once again back in the present. The 3 guys celebrate what they thought was a victory, but Aya quickly bursts their bubble by letting them know that she didn't really get an answer for her question that could only be answered by a version of her from far into the future, and that Kato was actually rejected, contrary to what his past, or future, self told him moments ago. Now, the crisis for them becomes clear. They need a way to see further into the future. In other words, they need to see beyond the infinite 2 minutes that they are stuck with. To solve this, Ozawa takes the monitor from upstairs and brings it downstairs to the cafe, and makes the 2 monitors face each other, creating a Drost effect with the infinite loop of monitors containing infinite versions of their future selves that are 2 minutes apart from each other. Ozawa confirms this success when a version of him from the future tells him that if he goes to the station today, he'll get a zebra pillbug from the toy vending machine. Ecstatic with this knowledge, he runs out and goes to the station, leaving the rest of the gang in the cafe. Ozawa may be happy with his little pillbug, but the rest of the gang wants something more. They want cash. With the infinite loop now created, they ask where they could find money. A version of them from the future shows them a wad of cash that they found in an abandoned VCR. The group follow their instructions and leave without Kato, and good thing he stayed behind, because just moments later, his neighbor drops by to give him a cymbal, even though he's a guitarist. The two chit-chat for a bit, until she notices the two screens facing each other. In the future monitor, the two see Kamiya being held at knife point by someone that lives in their building. Then almost immediately, this is followed by his neighbor being dragged and taken somewhere. The neighbor is, understandably, freaked out, and Kato tries explaining, but the rest of the gang end up arriving on the scene with their loot. They proudly show their findings to their past selves, despite Kato's warnings of what they just saw. And sure enough, in just a few minutes, two men show up at his cafe, demanding the money. Apparently, the lucky find they had wasn't so lucky after all. It was dirty money, and the owners want it back. The boss knocks out Kato before threatening Kamiya at knife point, like what they saw on the TV. One of the men takes the cash, as well as Kato's neighbor, with them. As she's being dragged out, however, she sees a version of Kato from the future, telling her that he is going to save her. When Kato wakes up, he gets a knife and attempts to rush to the 5th floor office in their building, where their neighbor is being held. The rest of the folks try to take the knife from him and prevent him from leaving, just as Ozawa comes running back, happy with his pillbug. Quite the vibe ruiner for Ozawa there. He assesses the situation, and after seeing the story unfold from the Time TV, he realizes that they all had roles to play, so they won't create a paradox or put more people at harm. He fulfills his role by telling his past self about the pillbug he found. Before crafting a new plan, they need to know what happens in the future. With that, Ozawa instructs Kato to bring the Time TV, the one carrying the past, to the office on the 5th floor. Nervously, he carries the screen and walks up the stairs to the 5th floor office to fulfill his most urgent task. As he goes up the flights, however, he is stopped by his friends. Aya runs up to him and puts a ketchup bottle in the front of his pocket, before telling him to keep going. A little while later, Kamiya puts the symbol over his back. Then lastly, Tanub hands him a pillbug, before telling him that one of the guys hates bugs. With all of these things equipped on his body, he enters the 5th floor office, just as the guys are tying up his neighbor. He sets the TV down next to him, within view of the scene, so the folks at the cafe could catch the action. As the boss brings out a knife, he walks into it, making him stab the ketchup bottle instead, and fooling the two culprits into thinking that he was injured so he could hit them. When he gets up, he shows the stabbed ketchup bottle to the monitor to alert the folks downstairs. But the fight isn't over yet. The other guy pulls out a gun and shoots him from the back. Luckily, the symbol makes the bullet bounce, leaving him uninjured. He then approaches the guy with the gun and hands him the pillbug, scaring him. With the two culprits out of the way, Kato and his neighbor head back downstairs with the TV. You'd think the movie would end there, but as it turns out, their whole infinite 2-minute loop was causing a wormhole disturbance, and lo and behold, the time and space police are there to stop them. They found the rest of the gang knocked out, and they were almost next in line. But since the two were trying to prevent everything from getting out of hand, the two cops let them off the hook. But not without consequence. Before they leave, they need to drink a memory-erasing agent that makes them forget everything that has ever happened in the past few hours, so they can all move past this knowledge of time traveling. The cops tell them the dangers of creating a time paradox, and how they could alter everything by not doing things according to plan. And speaking of plan, in the future monitor, they see that their future selves took the memory-erasing agent, knocking both of them out. So, after the two time cops aggressively try to convince the two to take the agents, the girl sits in front of the Time TV again, and just as she takes the agent, she sneezes, causing the powder to go everywhere. The two cops panic. This was totally not what was meant to happen, according to what they saw in the future. Meanwhile, Kato does the same as well, and the two agents slowly vanish as the timeline changes. With the rest of the gang passed out and the two cops gone, Kato and his neighbor sit down for some coffee. Moments later, we see them in the future world, turning off the TV.